It's really good to settle in and close the week together. So if you haven't already, I invite you to do as Mark suggested, close windows, silence your phone, actually place it face down so you can't see any notifications, and give yourself the Hanukkah gift of this time, really to minimize all potential distractions, which are many in this world. And I want to continue building on some of the themes that we talked about with Hallel on Wednesday, because we don't just recite Hallel on Rosh Chodesh of Hanukkah, but we actually recite Hallel all 8 days, which is an unusual and wonderful convention, or an exciting and wonderful convention, custom, I should say. And the reason I want to draw on Hallel is I'm interested together in thinking about the role of levity and joy and laughter in expanding the inner light. This is a topic I've reflected a lot on because when I was considering choosing who would sort of be my formal meditation teacher, what I noticed was that I wanted teachers who were funny. This doesn't seem completely obvious to me. Like when you're thinking about who would be whose spiritual lineage you would be in, I would, in a cognitive, rational way, I might have thought I'd want people who had integrity, had presence, were learned, were honest, were ethical, right? All of these qualities, maybe people whose identities I could relate to or share, people who spoke in ways that felt affirming and resonant. And maybe all that is true. But what actually like arose in me was the teacher that arose for me, who was Rebecca Bradshaw, she makes me laugh. I laugh on the cushion with her. And levity and lightheartedness and laughter are actually like such spiritual medicine. And there is a phrase that comes up in my studies of the Rambam's Hilchot Tshuva, this 12th century medieval text, which invites us to have nachat ruach, to have sort of a settled spirit, right? This is where the Yiddish phrase to have nachas comes in, right? This is what we might call sympathetic joy. In the Pali, this is the quality of mudita, right? We have spoken a little bit about the quality of karuna, compassion, and a little bit about other sort of these Brahma Viharas, these qualities we want to cultivate. And one of them is actually mudita, which is sympathetic joy. And I experience a lightheartedness as part of that, like not the ability to laugh at someone, but the ability to laugh with each other. This is part of what expands our inner light, the ability to laugh with each other. Now, the core Torah story this relates to is not this week's Parsha, so you'll excuse me going off script here. The core Torah story that comes up is actually the story of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which we read earlier in October, which is the story of Sarah and Hagar. It's a rather tense story that ends with a lighthearted moment in which Sarah finds out finally, after having banished Hagar and becoming pregnant at the age of 99, God tells her that she's pregnant, and she laughs. And she laughs in a contagious way. And ultimately, she names her one and only child Yitzchak from the word schok, meaning laughter. Because I laughed, she says. And I've always stuck with this idea of like, what is the role of joy and levity and laughter in our spiritual practice, and especially in our meditation practice. Meditation can feel so heavy. Like we sit on the cushion and we can become kind of like rocks. Like it's like we can't move. There's an overwhelmingness to like enduring the pain of a sit. There's kind of a seriousness that can be accompanied with the quiet. And one of the ways that Thich Nhat Hanh really undermines this is by always suggesting that we actually place a smile on our face after we close our eyes, which we're going to practice today, this sort of Tibetan tradition of like joy from the inside out kind of. So I'm going to bring a little bit of laughter to us. This is one of my favorite books. It's called Hagar Poems by Moja Kaf. She's a Syrian poet. And it's 100 poems, all written from the first person perspective of Hagar. And I'm going to read one of them to begin and one of them to close, so you'll get a sense. They are very varied in their nature. And I'm going to read one of the more sarcastic or ironic ones to get us started. This one is entitled, sometimes she refers to as Hagar and sometimes Hajar, which is more accurate for the Arabic. So in this one, it's Hajar. So I'll do it as read. Hajar writes a letter to Sarah as a cathartic exercise suggested by her therapist. Dear Sarah, life made us enemies, but it doesn't have to be that way. What if we both ditched the old man? He could have visitation rights with the boys, alternate weekends and holidays, especially the Feast of the Sacrifice. He took that day anyway, forgetting it was about me in the desert, watching my baby dehydrate near to death. Anyhow, you and we'd set up the house, raise the kids, start a catering business maybe. You have brains, so do I. We could travel. There are places to see besides Ur and this Nowheresville desert with its tribes of hooligans. No. Your lips thin when you disapprove, like the mother I almost remember from before I wound up in your house. I was barely more than a girl. You used to laugh then. In those days, you could stand to look at me. We even hug sometimes. Oh, Sarah, you need years of therapy. Can't you admit that what he did was wrong? Be angry at him for just 1 second. You don't have to be angry forever, just long enough to know the world won't fall apart. Long enough to pity him, yourself, me. Laugh, Sarah, laugh. Imagine God the possibility. Sincerely, no, love, Hajar. So I bring this to you because sometimes what we need is some levity with our greatest struggles, right? To say, if we take it to our practice, if what arises is an anxious thought, we can go into a sort of constricted battle with it. Like, why am I having this thought again? Or I will forever have this thought, or why are you plaguing me? And instead, what if it's like, there's that thought again. Every time I sit down, I wonder about X, silly Ari Lev, like really, can there be a lightness with our suffering? And from that place, can we imagine God the possibility, right? Nesgadol hayapo, can there be sort of a great miracle inside of us, with the starting point being levity? So with that inspiration, we're going to journey into silence. I invite you to find a posture that is alert and relaxed, or as alert and as relaxed as your body allows for today at this time. To butterfly your eyelashes and lower your gaze or close your eyes entirely. To feel the pressure of your feet and your tush on the ground. Hands as they rest clasped in your lap or on your thighs. To roll back your shoulders. To wiggle out your neck and notice it still does crack. To release the jaw, and the cheeks and the eyelids. And to settle into presence with the breath. With an awareness where the touch is as soft as cotton balls, right? We're not laying a heavy hand on our awareness or our breath. It's just a gentle contact. And it should have that cotton ball, like, oh, that feels good, right? If someone were to rub cotton balls on your cheek, there would be like a little giddy point of contact. Can we greet each moment with a little bit of giddy contact? thoughts arise and take us from our practice, and then we remember and we return. And we greet the breath and the awareness with the tickle of a cotton ball. No reprimand, just knowing, gentle knowing. How silly is the mind? It always wants to be anywhere but now, but here. We'll close our practice with one more Hagar poem. Still in the theme of touching our most tender places lightly. This one's called Hajar, First Woman on the Moon. Abraham is just a dot now. Distant planet, Sarah's laughter floats by in globules. I grab, swallow one, and laugh. I am alone in a space no one else has ever inhabited. I'm not what I was before, not Sarah's Hajar, nor Abraham's, not a girl of Egypt anymore, can't go back now, and I don't know what else to be. What will anchor me? I somersault like hiccups. There is too much noise on earth to hear God there. In a life spent listening to commandments, I never had the luxury of this lunar silence. Things whiz by, jinns swing from galactic chandeliers, eavesdropping. Was that a ram? Was that a lote tree? I hear the beating of many wings and someone being taken on a tour of heaven. Will these weightless shapes be hewn into a cube solid enough to anchor Earth? Did I touch that rock before? 7 times? So as we journey through the end of Hanukkah and into Shabbat, my prayer for you is that you don't let the laughter float by, but you swallow the you grab the globules and swallow them one by one and laugh.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rabbi Ari Lev. It's a beautiful, beautiful week of practice together. Really grateful, so grateful to you. And friends, seal the practice as we do each time with an opportunity for those of you in mourning to recite Kaddish, and for those of you who are not reciting Kaddish, to be present for those who are. So if you are participating in the Mourner's Kaddish, you're welcome to put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. Thanks to Jordan for sharing the words on the screen. And if you are reciting them, please join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yit Gadal, Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yalma, Divrah, Tev, Yamlik, Malchutei, Vayekol, Biyomeh, Yed, Yed, La'adalah, Yikawi, V'yu, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach, V'nei Hamaya, Moshe, Yitaval, Shmei Kusha, Ela Mikol Bircha, Amiran Ba'alma, V'imru, Amin. Shlama Rabba V'Yisrael, Hainu Aleinu Shalom Yahu Shalom Reinu Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. Last opportunity to wish you a Chanukah Sameach until Shabbat comes in, and wishing you a sweet, restorative Shabbat. We'll be back on Monday all week for a week of practice again before taking a hiatus the following week. Thanks to Jordan Pollock for holding our tech space, and many, many thanks to Rabbi Ari Lev Fornari of Kol Tzedek Synagogue in West Philadelphia for leading us so beautifully all week. And also thanks to our friend Rabbi Nami Kelman, who sponsored this sit today in loving memory of our beloved founder of IJS, Rabbi Rachel Cowan, Zichrona Livracha, blessed memory. As always, you're welcome to stay on, stay with us to use this time and space and this container for practice. Just continue to sit for the next 15 minutes or so, or join us for some conversation about today's teaching and to have an opportunity to reflect on the practice. If you have a question you'd like to put to Rabbi Ari Lev, please put in the chat, and if you can, preface it by writing question in all caps, and try to keep an eye. Apologies, it's sometimes hard to keep track totally of the chat, but I will do my best. Thanks to Jordan for putting the link to the book, Hagar Poems, that Rabbi Ari Lev shared today. And if you have any question about the teaching, please put it in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on that. Thanks so much again. And it's interesting because I never really associated the word levity with lightness. And that jumped out at me. And also, you're describing choosing your teacher based on their capacity to make you laugh. So I wanted to go into that a little bit more, because people can feel, I think, very much like, oh, this is serious stuff, right? And sometimes people will be sitting, and all of a sudden you'll hear something. When we're sitting live in a group, sometimes we'll hear people just kind of start chuckling or giggling, or something will come up. And I just want to invite you to talk a little bit about that quality of joy that emerges, and maybe also the instinct among some of us to repress it, to feel embarrassed by it, to feel, oh, it's not appropriate, especially in hard times, but even in, I don't know if there are any times that are not hard anymore, but especially in hard times, it might be this sense of, oh, this is not the time. So maybe just talk a little bit more about the role of levity, joy, and also maybe resistance to it, how we work with resistance to it, if for some people that's the case.
Well, first, Mark, I think your point, like, when's not a hard time, is actually a little bit to the point.
Right?
Like, whether it's personal or collective or communal, like, it's actually not real. If you were waiting till things were easy personally, or till you weren't suffering, or till people on earth weren't suffering to find joy, then you wouldn't find joy. That's not the world. I was reaching for a bunch of books on this that have been my guide. Let me start. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, I referenced the teachings of Rabbi Alan Liu. Phenomenal book, This Is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. And he has my favorite definition of joy ever. This is on page 267 for people who have this book. And he, in this moment, is actually writing about the festival of Sukkot, which is referred to as Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy. Interestingly enough, there is a Sukkot-Hanukkah connection. Like, there is one narrative that Hanukkah was created in a year when Sukkot couldn't be observed, and it's sort of a delayed festival of joy. For me, I'm experiencing it sort of as like a redo of Sukkot, because Sukkot had such a hard ending that it feels like I'm reorienting.
Well, not only that, just before you read that, there is of course the theory that Hanukkah itself, right, was a delayed celebration of Sukkot and Shemini Atzeret. So it's totally in keeping with what you're saying.
I think I cut out. You missed. I just said that.
Oh, sorry.
Totally fine.
I missed that.
You missed that.
Okay.
But yes, Mark, I agree.
You agree. That's
I
good.
agree.
And I agree with you.
Perfect.
I was looking for my Alan Liu book on the shelf.
So he writes, joy is a deep release of the... He says, when we speak of joy here, we are not speaking of fun. Joy is a deep release of the soul, and it includes death and pain. Joy is any feeling fully felt, any experience we give our whole being to. We are conditioned to choose pleasure and to reject pain, but the truth is that any moment of our life fully inhabited, any feeling fully felt, any immersion in the full depth of life can be the source of deep joy. And to me, when he's describing any moment fully inhabited, any feeling fully felt, any immersion in the full depth of life. He's describing meditation.
Mm-hmm.
What meditation is preparing us for. We try to do it on the cushion so we can do it in our lives. He's saying when we are fully present, no matter what else is also present, that is a kind of joy. There is a deep joy in that. And there's a counterpart teaching that I'll share with you that is from this book by Rabbi Arthur Green. It's a little book I love called Judaism's 10 Best Ideas. And the first chapter is called Joy. It's Simcha. And he translates it as happiness is a religious precept. And he recounts this beautiful little Hasidic tale. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Yes, okay, he describes Simcha shel mitzvah, finding joy in the mitzvot or the commandments, is essential to the religious life as Judaism views it. It is a mitzvah. A mitzvah may be a ritual form or an act of kindness. The point of doing it is meant to fill our hearts with joy. This is why we do mitzvot, is to fill our hearts with joy. A mitzvah is a place where you meet God, and of course that would make you happy. We anticipate it. We look forward to fulfilling it. It's so different than how we think of mitzvot as religious obligations that we are burdened by, like the mitzvah, fill our hearts with joy. It's true that the sources speak of the yoke of the commandments as though they're a burden, but the following story illustrates the sort of yoke they mean. It is a pious custom to bake special matzot right on the eve of Passover, in order to be fully engaged in the celebration of our freedom. To make matzah properly, you need to use water that has been left standing overnight to ensure its absolute stillness. Once in the old country where water was still brought from the river, an elderly rabbi was seen carrying 2 heavy buckets full of water for this purpose, tied to a yoke around his neck. A neighbor riding by in a horse-drawn cart saw him and said, "Come here, Rabbi, put your buckets on my wagon and I'll give you a ride." The rabbi looked up smiling and said, "I have the joy of doing this mitzvah only once a year, and you want me to give it away to a horse?" And then he writes, "Here the burden itself has become a source of joy." Mm-hmm. And I think that that's essential. I feel this way about my sukkah. So my sukkah is 6 large wooden panels, and I keep them in my garage. And it's a lot of effort. I have to get a neighbor or a friend to come. I can't take them from my garage to my deck where I put up the sukkah by myself. I need to find someone to do it. It sort of is like a 3-day process, staging it. And I've come to realize, like, I'm the guy with the buckets. I only get to do it once a year. I love that I have this weird construction project once a year, even though it takes time and I usually get a splinter. And so there's just a deep that something has effort or is related to suffering doesn't eliminate the potential to encounter it with joy. Mm-hmm. And as a last point on this, I'll just say one good inspiration for folks. I won't read from it, but Ross Gay, who's an incredible Black queer poet, his latest book is called Inciting Joy, and you might be interested in it.
Thanks for all of these resources. Your answer, I think, leads into this. There's a good question from Catherine related to that, who Catherine asks or said, "I often experience laughter with myself and others as an expression of feeling that is not necessarily lighthearted, like such as nervousness, anxiety, like nervous laughter, anxious laughter, or even laughter that's associated with anger. How does this complex expression of laughter fit with your teaching about joy?" And I think what that quote from Alan Liu that you shared kind of encompasses that, right? It's about like fully feeling those, like could be joy in feeling anxiety. There can be joy by that definition. There's joy in anxiety, there's joy in nervousness, joy in anger, joy in fully feeling whatever it is that's present right now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that we can, it's not that there's joy in being angry, but that we can, in knowing we're angry, there's joy.
Right.
There's a difference there. The awareness of our experience, there's joy, even if the experience is painful.
Right.
That's the difference.
Right. Yeah. let's underscore that, right? The aware, it's not the emotion itself that is the source of joy. It's the awareness of being aware of emotion, or aware of whatever is coming up. So
Awareness itself
right,
has a joyful,
right,
lighthearted quality to it. That's the cotton ball image. Like,
right,
awareness is gentle and it's playful and it's flexible and it can move and it can have within it, thunderstorms. But it's different to be in the thunderstorm than to be in the awareness of the thunderstorm, right?
yeah.
To be in the sky and not the thundercloud.
Just a quickie. So the author of that book, Judaism's 10 Greatest Ideas, is Rabbi Arthur Green, by the way, for people who missed
Judaism's
that.
10 Best Ideas. Yep.
Okay, I'll change his name of his title.
He'll probably let you do that, Mark.
I'm sure he probably would. Wait, there was a question I wanted to ask you here. Well, a lot of Jewish geography going on here in the chat today. All right. I lost it. Oh no, I know what it was. It was about choosing the teacher. I actually wanted to ask you to say a little bit more about that.
Well, I'm someone for whom lineage really matters. I consider myself sort of having two primary teachers. One is Rabbi B'nai Lappi, and the other is Rebecca Bradshaw. And it matters to me the Talmid Rav relationship, the idea of being the student and the teacher, just is a really meaningful relationship to me. And as I've been thinking about, for me, my Buddhist and my Jewish learning are sort of on parallel tracks, and they really reinforce each other, but they're not integrated. So they're very different than sort of a lot of what you offer, Mark, in the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, which what I'm offering here is I'm teaching from the place that they're integrated within me, but my practices actually exist much more parallel. They don't intersect in my practice. They sort of are parallel practices that intersect within me. So, in preparing for a recent sabbatical, I knew I wanted to deepen my meditation practice, and as part of that, I wanted to sort of become someone's student to find more direction on the path. And right, teachers are many things, but one of the things that arose for me is I want to know what the practice has done to a person, and the way a person is sort of proof of the pudding, so to speak.
Right.
So I was very drawn to Rebecca as a teacher who could talk about suffering and with a political analysis and a power analysis, but with levity. Could make me laugh. And could not, there's a way that we can sort of hit a nail on the head with a hammer, or we can sort of like wiggle the nail loose with laughter. And I'm someone who instinctually has a hammer in my hand, and so I'm always trying to figure out how to like balance that gvura with just more water, more chesed, more softness, more levity.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at the end. So once more, I just want to thank you, Ari Lev, for the beautiful teaching, and also introducing people to a lot of really wonderful resources. I think people have been so enriched by this, and has really deepened Hanukkah for this whole community. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your trust. I appreciate it.
Of course. And for the Kol Tzedek folks who who have joined us along the way, welcome. So glad to have you here. And you are certainly blessed to have Ari Lev as your rabbi, as your senior rabbi. And for everyone, I want to wish you the last couple of hours of Hanukkah. May you find some joy, simcha, in the remaining hours that leads into Shabbat together. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Monday. Thanks to Jordan as well, of course, for holding our space.